Mrs. Tefelsky, would you please call the roll?
Of course. Dr. Howard?
Here.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Here.
Mr. Mead?
Here.
Mr. Otto is absent. Dr. Roberts?
Here. Items 2 and 3 were not appropriate because we did not have executive session. So we will go with 3 for the approval of the agenda. Dr. Thoreau, is the agenda to be approved as is?
I'm asking the board recommend that the board approve the agenda as amended. So the amendment includes executive session tonight, and then under the welcome visitors and public participation, we added the attachment of rules of order for public participation. We missed that, and then on the fees reading, we didn't have it as a second reading. It should have been second reading, so we changed it from first to second. So those were the amendments made to tonight's agenda.
Could I please have a motion for the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Mrs. Tefelsky, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Passes.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will go to reports. Butler Tech, Mr. Mead, please.
Hopefully Matt has this ready, but with the screen up above us, you will not be able to see it since we all came in person instead of doing it by Zoom. But it's a slideshow that I had sent to all the members of the board earlier. All right. And I'm going to have to find my copy since I can't see up above either. Okay. So Matt, you have that up there? Okay. So this is a Butler Tech report. If you go to slide 2, and hopefully the board members can remember what was on there. It's a bar graph with blue bars. And what it shows is the Talawanda enrollment at Butler Tech from 2014 to 2019. And FTEs, of course, means full-time equivalent, basically one student being at one of their campuses. So you can see, and you might remember, we started with 83 back in fiscal year 14, and in fiscal year 19, we had 78 full-time students down there. Not a huge difference in our enrollment. We've had some down years, but basically it hasn't gone that far. If you move to the third slide, I'm not sure how visible that is to people because the fourth slide is a chart with the same information. But it has the 5 campuses of Butler Tech, the Science Center, D. Russell Lee, which is, of course, the original building in Fairfield Township, the Natural Science Center, which is in Monroe. The Science Center is out in Westchester. The Public Safety Building, which is up on Route 4, and the School of the Arts, which now is also in the same building as D. Russell Lee. And it has the enrollment of Talawanda students at those buildings from 2014 to 2019. You can see that the Science Center did not open until 2015. And basically, it just shows the numbers stay somewhat similar. There's a big drop in D. Russell Lee from 59 down to 46 from 2014 to 15, but that's because they opened the Science Center and some of those programs were moved out there. You can see at the Science Center last year, we only had 6 students where we started out with 14. My guess is because it's so far away for our students to go way out there. And the Natural Science Center, which is out near Monroe High School, has only 7 students. And again, that's pretty far away for our students. And I think that's one of the things that impedes our students from attending some Butler Tech programs is distance. The next slide is a bar graph. We on that one? And that's the same thing, just in a bar graph form, and it sort of shows that drop in D. Russell Lee that first year, but it's rebounding, and it's rebounded in 2019 because their sophomore program is taking off. They now take sophomores at D. Russell Lee campus and give them many experiences in many different of their programs to see if they would want to join one. Okay, then the next slide is Talawanda students in satellite programs. Butler Tech, besides having the 5 campuses, also has satellite programs here at Talawanda High School and one at the middle school. So at the high school, it's the VOAG program, which you can see full-time equivalents in 2014 was almost 30, and in 2019 is almost 39. There's been some up and downs there, but VOAG obviously is one of our popular programs here. CBI is career-based intervention, and basically you'll see a decline in that over the years. And the FCS is consumer science, and you can see that that fluctuates but has gone down a little. The next one, which is a graph of that exact same thing, I think points out very clearly the VOAG's making a comeback again. The last couple of years have been strong years for the VOAG program. I think we have excellent instructors there that have brought some kids back. And CBI, the reason it fell off is in 2014, that represented 3 career-based programs, one for seniors, for juniors, and for freshmen, sophomores. And they dropped one. And so the numbers dropped immediately. And then the last year, 2019, they had dropped another program. So we're now down to 1 career-based program for seniors only. And that explains why that number for kids in career-based intervention. Butler Tech is basically getting out of the at-risk programs. And career-based intervention served our at-risk kids. You know, we used to have 4 programs here. We're down to 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle school. I would envision that those are not going to be around forever. In Talawanda, we have to come up with some way of serving that population. And then the last slide just states that last year we had 25 students enrolled in the career-based intervention program at the middle school. So that's just some information about how many of our students use Butler Tech and go down to their programs.
I had a question.
Yes.
Can you say more about what at-risk means when you say Butler Tech is getting out of that business? Does that mean that kids with behavioral issues,
Okay, at-risk is, it's a career-based intervention programs. In senior year, they go half-day, do their work online with a teacher in a room, and then they work the other part of the day and get credit for that work.
Okay.
So it's a work-based intervention program for students who are at risk of dropping out.
Got it.
And the idea is if you're coming half-day and getting your academic credits, and then you're practicing your job skills the second half of the day and getting credit for that. It's a way for students that our traditional high school isn't working for, but maybe also aren't interested in getting to auto mechanics and or nursing or something. They haven't quite figured it out yet. So they're at risk of not graduating. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Excuse me, Legislative Liaison Report, Dr. Knight-Abbott, please.
Yeah, the General Assembly passed House Bill 164 last week, and it is, it's for Governor DeWine to sign. I don't think he signed it yet, but I think it's going to be signed. It deals with a lot of elements in transitioning from closing schools down in the spring and into next year. So one of those is test and graduation rules, which allows for basically allows students to use their classroom grades in those subjects that have end-of-course exams to fulfill graduation requirements. It also provides for some funding that was taken away. It restores $23 million in funding to school districts, mainly in wealthy communities, because wealthy communities took a bigger hit in in the cuts that were announced in May from the state. And I don't know how that will impact our district specifically. But this allocation by the General Assembly does ensure that no school and district will end up getting less than 94% of its original state funding amount for 1920, for 2019-20, I mean, school year. It also has a provision about religious expression, and it changes the current law that allows a school to limit the exercise of religion to lunch periods or other non-instructional time. It permits students to incorporate religious expression into writing assignments or artwork. It also changes the third grade reading rules. This is third grade reading tests stop students from being passed to the fourth grade if they don't pass the state reading test. This bill prohibits schools from retaining students in the third grade next year based on their scores from fall. It also changes evaluations and ratings, how the state will do that next year. Schools will be prohibited from using student growth data from state tests on 2021 teacher or principal evaluations. It also prohibits the state from rating charter school sponsors for the 1920 school year. It has a provision about special education, which says that therapists and other non-classroom personnel will be allowed to provide services to students with disabilities electronically or via telehealth communication for the 2021 school year. And it also finally it disallows schools from furloughing teachers. It took out the provision that would allow schools to furlough teachers, and so that was the last aspect of the legislation.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I think we can, Sean and I can share. They were looking at the 6% mark, and Talawanda came in, correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember, 5.8%, so we won't receive any of that
So
money
we were at
back.
10% annualized, we were at 10%.
We were at 10%
We're at
annualized.
10%, so that's $700. And back, it's going to be about $300,000. What I did not understand in the House bill, in the House bill was whether they were going to take the CARES Act into consideration. So if they take the CARES Act into consideration to offset it, then we're looking at about $14,000 that they'll refund us,
Okay,
not the $300,000.
that's a big difference.
That's a big
That's a
difference.
big difference. Thank you.
Okay.
There were a lot of pieces in that House Bill 164.
Yes.
I know one of the things that I've actually talked with my grandson about, because he's a soccer coach, is because of the way the grades were figured for the fourth period. Some of the students who really were struggling get to play this the third period, and then the fourth period for a lot were pass-fail.
Correct.
It does impact some of our athletes as well. Thank you, Dr. Abowitz. Arts and Athletics Liaison Report. Dr. Howard, please.
Thank you. Not a lot, again, because there's just not a lot happening right now. Anecdotally, I've heard that what has been going on with athletics is going very well, very limited contact, groups of 10 students at a time. We've got 3 staff, and we've had a pretty good response from athletes who really were happy to be back in some kind of form. But it's, again, there's some limitations as to what they can actually do. My understanding, I haven't heard anything lately, is that the Ohio High School Athletics Association is still been a little vague about what's coming down the pipeline, so it's really not, we don't know what's going to be happening. And I would expect that by July we'll be getting a lot more direction and information. The same is true for the arts. I got an email today from Mr. Marston, just updating us about what's going on with marching band. They're not starting marching band skills training at this time. Again, everything is changing. They're deciding to wait a few more weeks to see what's going to come down the pipeline in terms of regulations and guidelines. he says they understand clearly, all the participants understand that there may not be a fall season. Again, we don't know that yet. What they are planning, typically percussion and color guard begin practice in June, and then brass and woodwind players in July, but the plan right now is to have percussion and color guard to also wait until July. So again, there's a lot of hopefullys in all of these reports. Hopefully, they will be able to get going back on track in July. He's also assuring us that whenever they do get back, he will be following very closely the governor's guidelines, the state and local health guidelines, to make sure that we are bringing our students back in a way that is safe and keeping them healthy. So I haven't heard anything about any of the other arts activities. I think everything else is pretty quiet at this point, so.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Dr. Howard. Student Achievement Academic Liaison. Today I sent to all of you an attachment once a month because, excuse me, I get something called Success. It's the June bulletin. It's a monthly bulletin. And it just gives tips on things that are happening around the state right now, with the opportunity to click on links to see what's going on. And then the second page is always more of a research brief or an article that discusses things that are important for board members and administrators to know about. So I sent that as a PDF today so that I wouldn't take additional time tonight because we have a very full agenda. I will be meeting next Monday virtually with the entire state committee. So I will have information on that in July. Resolutions and presentations.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Amy Misechko to talk about the Pride data that was recently collected. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening. And as Dr. Thoreau has said, share with you the most recent student drug use survey, an instrument of Pride, and the results that we just received as a district. As a reminder, the Health Coordinating Council that Talawanda has, which is an amazing entity and opportunity for community members, staff, and faculty to come together and look at how can we minimize those non-academic barriers to our student learning through policy, program, and/or practice. And it's an amazing opportunity to all come together and see how what we can do to minimize those barriers that exist for our students, and substance use being one of them that we're going to talk about this evening. As a quick overview, oh, here we go. Doesn't want to go there. Okay. As a quick overview, the Student Drug Use Survey conducted by, or an instrument of Pride, is provided to us through Prevention First, which is a coalition in the greater Cincinnati area, and the Butler County Coalition. So those together allow us to provide and administer this survey for our students. It was offered to all Talawanda 7th through 12th grade students in November of this past academic year, and we had 989 students participate. It asks a whole breadth of questions around alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, everything from frequency of use, availability, perceived risk, perceived disapproval by peers, by parents. And this year, I am so very excited that they have added some new pilot questions. So we only have one data point, but they are all around mental health, social, and emotional health, which I am really excited about to share with you this evening, and then have the HCC really take a look at this data, dig deep into it, and figure out what we can do to ensure that our students are as healthy as possible. I always get asked, well, this is student self-report, right? Yes, it is, but this is a very valid instrument that has additional honesty checks built into it. And it is truly a rich data set that drives the prevention and early intervention initiatives, both for the district and for the greater community. So without further ado, let's dig in and share some of the data. 30-day use. We ask our students, how often have you used these substances within the past 30 days? Okay, or have you used the substances in the past 30 days? And we've been collecting this data since 2002. So we have great longitudinal data, and I'm very excited to share that as a district, we can share since 2006, we have seen a significant decrease in alcohol use, cigarette use, and marijuana use as a district. And I believe that is something to celebrate. Because I know the district has invested a lot of resources and the support of the community. Prescription drug misuse has been asked on the questionnaire since 2012, and we have seen a decrease in that as well. And then e-cigarettes is the last blue line, just kind of came onto the radar of the survey a few years ago, and we are seeing that head in the right direction as well. So this is one of the core measures that we really try to look at to assess the overall health of our students. And we have the Butler County data and regional data, which includes the greater Cincinnati area, portions of Kentucky and Indiana. To celebrate tonight, I'm very proud to say this is the first time that we have seen Talawanda School District below some of the county and regional averages in the positive direction for our student-reported drug use. So very excited. We're heading in the right direction. There's still a lot of work to do. But I wanted to share the county and regional comparison data with you this evening. Other key measures that I believe are important that we need to keep our eye on. As you see, the measure is listed, and then we list the 5 specific substances. We look at perception of harm. So the percentage you see there is reporting students that say that drug is harmful or very harmful. And I think it's important to note there that marijuana is perceived to be the least harmful of all of the substances. With the legalization throughout the county and the social marketing we're seeing, that is not a surprise, but that is something we need to keep working on. Perception of parental disapproval. So that is the percentage of students reporting that they believe their parents would feel it's wrong or very wrong for them to use these substances. Similarly, friend or peer disapproval. So the percentage reporting that my friends would not think this is a good thing if I chose to use those substances. And finally, availability, which is one of the environmental conditions that the Coalition for a Healthy Community really keeps its eye on in terms of how can we ensure, because these students here are saying that it is easy or very easy for me to get my hands on these substances. So what can we do as a greater community to use those environmental strategies to reduce the perception of availability for our students? So in summary, for the substance use portion, most Talawanda students are not using substances. We gotta shout that from the mountaintops and make sure, most importantly, our youth know that. Because it is so easy to fall in line with, well, everybody's doing it. I'm seeing what their pictures on social media, or I see that this is what I'm supposed to be doing as a high school student. No, we have to make that the new norm. E-cigarettes are the new #1 drug of choice. It has been alcohol up until this survey period. Now we know that's there. We've been conducting focus groups. I'm very excited to get that data back because we're going to be working with our youth to create social marketing campaigns relevant to Talawanda students. Age of first use for drugs. In 2003, it was 12 years old. Now we're around 13.5. The prevention literature is very clear that we need to keep moving that age up, up, and up, because the greater the onset, or the later the onset of use, the less likely that addiction and other harmful behaviors set in. So that is, we're heading in the right direction. Students report they're using it at home and at friends' homes. on weekends. And then I really want to make sure that this point is there. Most students say they get the substances from their friends, but a very close second for alcohol was parents. So we need to look at what strategies can we implement as a district to ensure, and as a community, to make sure that our parents know that it's illegal, it's not healthy, and it's unsafe for students to be consuming alcohol underage. Another celebration. Our students are even more protected than they were when our students last took the survey. What I mean by that, students that report they're abstaining from use also are showing these protective factors. Protective factors are those that reduce the likelihood that a student's going to engage in substance use. So our students are protected when they make good grades, when they attend a community of faith, when they take part in community activities, school activities, and when teachers and parents and caring adults talk to them about the dangers of substance use. All of those are headed in the right direction and strengthening for our students, and we need to continue that great work. Here are a few of the pilot questions that I wanted to share with you. Again, this is one data point. These were just added to the survey, but I think this can really help guide our work and the work of the Health Coordinating Council in the coming year. How true are these statements to you? And I divided it by what our middle schoolers, only 7th and 8th graders, reported, and then our high schoolers. There is at least one teacher or adult in my school that really cares about me. Over half of our students feel that, which is wonderful. We'd love to see that number go up. Most students at my school help each other when they're hurt or upset. I'd like to see those numbers increase as well, because we know that peer-to-peer piece is so, peers are the greatest influence at these ages. And we need to empower and make sure our students feel like they have the skills to reach out to their friends when they're hurting. Some additional pilot questions. We ask, can you discuss your personal problems, whether it's fears, anxiety, depression, whatever it may be, with at least one adult in the home, with at least one adult at school, and with at least one friend. And I don't think it's a surprise when we're talking about tweens and teens that friends are the highest percentage that they feel like they can go to. But I applaud the district for putting relationships as an absolute priority and building assets in our young people through the caring adults that we have. And I think this speaks to, we just need to continue that work and make sure that our young people know that we're here to celebrate with them, we're here to teach them, guide them, but also when they're having problems, we're here to listen and we're here for them. How true are these statements? I know how to stand up for myself without being mean. See the middle school and high school numbers, and I'm confident in my ability to talk out my problems with people. I think, again, the social emotional learning curricula that we've invested in, I think this is really critical, and having students understand, first of all, what they're feeling and what those feelings mean, but then how to reach out and share with other people. And finally, within the last 30 days, students report that they've experienced the following, and they could mark multiple answers. I was not surprised to see stress and anxiety as the highest percentage. And as we know, and I was talking on the way in, going through this pandemic has, I believe, induced a lot of stress in all of us, and anxiety and uncertainty. So these need to be key areas that we look at and address as a district, and continue to keep an eye on these particular data. So where do we go from here? I believe strengthening our youth action teams, that peer-led prevention, they're listening to their peers. And if their peers are saying most students aren't using, it's cool, to not use and be engaged in that behavior, that's going to resonate. And so elevating that at the middle school and the high school and connecting to our Miami students who want to serve as those role models for our students is a very good thing. The PACS Good Behavior game is a great or environmental strategy, I should say, to teach the power of self-regulation, which is a critical skill in saying no and refusing substance use. Again, the curricula we're looking at for social emotional learning, investing, as I shared last month, in professional development for our staff on how to identify when students have maybe experienced trauma or anxiety and stress, and how to best approach them and work with them. Continue to strengthen our school-based health services and other programs in our school that are those peer intervention pieces. Review and update our district equity plan so we know that all students feel safe and confident and they have a key adult that cares about them. And that's for all students. And then continue partnering with the coalition. We just recently conducted an asset mapping exercise of the entire community, where we reached out and asked all youth serving agencies, what assets are you building in youth? We just got that back. I'd be happy to share that report with you, because now we got to dig deep and say, okay, where are the gaps? And what community organizations or entities can really step up and serve to make sure we're an asset-rich environment. And the no tips for parents and caregivers. Continue having caring adults reinforce to our young people that you're healthy, you're strong, and continue to make those good choices despite what other influences may come your way. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your support for the health and wellness programs over the years, for the drug prevention programs and mental health programs specifically, and the data that you see tonight. And I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
I have a question. I have two questions.
Please.
First of all, can we get emailed a copy of this? Because I'd like to,
I emailed it to you right before you came, so you
Oh.
would not have had it because
I
you were
don't
driving
think I
here.
saw it. All
But
right,
you
thank
do
you.
have it.
Certainly.
Yeah, I don't think I got that.
I'll
But
resend it.
the question that I have, though, it's all really interesting and basically optimistic information. I love the data sets on the substance abuse questions, but I gotta say what really got me the most was your pilot questions and some deep concerns I have about, especially those first two, that you said over half feel that there's at least one teacher that care. That's barely half. It's 55. It concerns me that our students don't have, a greater percentage of our middle and high school students don't feel that there's a teacher in their building that cares about them. And I'm not sure what we need to do about that as a district. I think you mentioned the PD as being really crucial, make sure staff, faculty know what to look for and how to reach out. But, you know, I just, that hurts my heart to hear, that there are 45% of our students who feel that there's not a teacher that cares about them. And along with that is that second statistic, under a third of students who feel that they're supported by their peers. That's really troubling to me too. And again, I'm not sure, I love all the intervention things that you mentioned, you mentioned the strengthening peer-led prevention for substance use. Is there some way of doing that peer-led prevention for this particular question too? That students do support each other, can reach out, have someone to talk to? I'm just kind of wondering how much of that is just adolescence and how much of that is, as you called it, an access, what do you call it? Asset-rich environment. Yeah.
Absolutely. I did not specifically mention where it says strengthen Hope Squad and Save Club. Those are initiatives at the high school and at the middle school where youth are nominated by their peers as, you know, these are the ones that I would go to, or I feel like have a pulse on the school. And then they are very intensely trained in, if you see a friend, a classmate who something, you just got red flags or that kind of uh-oh feeling, right? How do you approach them, and how do you make sure that they get to a caring adult in the building? Not that the young person needs to take it all on themselves, right? But those clubs are both kind of the see something, say something, reach out to peers, and the eyes and ears of the school. And they have just kind of started coming into fruition. So I'm very excited to follow that work and see what that can do for our young people feeling like my peers got my back, right? I hope so, because I want to see the trends over time. Absolutely. Hmm?
So I was just going to say that I think Amy's right. I think there's been a lot of stress that adults and our students have been experiencing during this pandemic. But I want to say it's been about 4.5 or 5 weeks ago. So several of us received an email in the evening from a parent who has a child who is a member of the Hope Squad, who was using her training to reach out to a student that was having a very bad time in the isolation. And so the mom said, my daughter is doing she's doing what she's supposed to be doing with her training right now. I'm reaching out to you because I know you can get on the phone and get an adult from the school system involved in this. And so that was actually a Friday evening, and we had 3 adults from Talawanda High School that responded within 2 minutes to me. And they had an SRO go to the student's house.
Wow.
So, so I wanted to support the information that Amy's giving you and tell you that even during this time when school wasn't in session, activities and the training that we've given students and adults are working, practiced.
Good. Yeah, that's encouraging. And again,
Thank you for letting me insert that, but
thank you for sharing that. And that's exactly kind of what I'm wondering, and I'm hoping that continues to be a positive development for other students. Again, I think part of my concern is the cliquishness that is typical for adolescents, especially younger adolescents, and how that might hold some of them back from even responding or participating or reaching out. But thank you for everything you're doing and for gathering this data. I'm very proud of our district for taking these steps and caring about this. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll stop now.
I just have a quick thing.
Yes.
So I'm glad to see that as part of the future opportunities is updating the district equity plan.
Yes.
Hoping that other groups in the district, curriculum, security, counseling, there'll be a big group of folks getting around a table to review that in light of current issues and parent concerns and things that are going on in the society right now in our community. So I was glad to see that that's included in your list, and just hope that's a comprehensive, group of folks at the table for that. I'm sure it will be, but thanks for including that.
Absolutely. Over the years, I've shared some of the other Pride data sets specifically related to school climate and school safety with that team that help informed the plan. And so continuing that work is vital.
And Amy, I was really pleased to hear near the end that you were talking about community agencies and really looking at what they provide, because many times it's a repeat, and if they really get together and say, oh, well, you're doing that, so I'll take this on, and so we can say that all of the community, agencies then are covering or intending to work on a specific rather than duplicating. Because I think all of the agencies want to do the best for kids and for families, but sometimes it is repetition of service.
Absolutely. And I will definitely share this document with you. It was an amazing project where we were able to meet with these agencies and have them look at which assets are you intentionally building in young people. And I think it was eye-opening for a lot of the organizations we met with, but to now have this map of where our youth are getting these, and just like you said, the repetition and intentionality are, I believe, what are key. So I'm excited about where this is a roadmap to drive our work, because it takes a whole community to raise healthy and resilient young people.
Well, and as I think of the 40 assets, because, I mean, you really pounded it into us about 8 years ago. And I still remember them.
Yes.
But I know there are clusters that
Yes.
are a little more difficult to deal with. And so those would be the ones that I would think that would want to look at intentionally to make sure that those are covered, because they are a little more difficult from my perspective. Very limited knowledge, but I would think that would be part of it.
Agree. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say, Amy, real quick, thank you. And I know you've used this data already for applying for a grant and inserting it too. So this data has been already analyzed. We dig deeper into it, and you are charging that lead, so I appreciate that. And I also want to give a great kudos to you and Stephanie Jones, because the food program that they are doing, I know this is a little bit different, is outstanding and amazing. It's hard work. Every Monday is hard work, and you guys do it easy. You make it look easy anyways. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
I'd like to call up Bill Hubbard. Now, we've asked Bill, since we have a relatively new board coming together, I'd like him to go over the facilities and get us, as well as the community, up to date on what we have.
Good evening, all. Thanks for letting me come in and talk tonight. Like Dr. Thoreau said, he had mentioned about, the concept study at the last board meeting, so I told him, I said, this will be a good opportunity for me to kind of just go over, some of the properties that Talawanda owns, and just some other little information that kind of pertains to that. I always love following Amy because I got to bring up the energy level. I can't compete with that, but I'll give it a shot. So basically, this is the property that's currently owned by the Talawanda School District, and I'm just going to kind of go through each property. I went through and just put the borders down and everything else, to kind of show the property lines. Here at the high school, it was built in 2011. It's got 187,000 square feet and sits on 154 acres. At the middle school, it was built in 1989. It's sitting at 117,000 square feet and sits on 30 acres. Bogan Elementary was built in 2006. It's at 60,000 square feet and sits on 35 acres. We've got Kramer, that was our most recent, at 2016. It's 70,000 square feet and sits on 20 acres. Marshall is the one that's getting replaced right now. The new Marshall project's supposed to be completed next summer. The new building will be sitting at 51,000 square feet, and that property is at 48 acres. We also own the Board of Education that just is celebrating a 100-year anniversary. It was built in 1920. And it's 3,400 square feet and sits on just about 1/10 of an acre. We got the PDC, the Professional Development Center. It was built in 1970. It's 8,800 square feet and sitting on about 1/2 acre. We also own 31 acres on Kerr Road. If you take Booth Road and run it into Kerr, you'll run right into it. As you can see from this, it sits right on the back side of the middle school, but there's obviously property that's in between there. But there's 31 acres that the school district owns on Kerr. And then that's just kind of a rundown, the years built, how much land's there, you know, just kind of a rundown of each property. So basically what I wanted to share with you is there's a new Chestnut Street Transit Hub that myself and Dr. Thoreau have been in recent discussions with the Butler County Regional Transportation Authority. And it sounds like it's a partnership between the BCRTA, Miami University, the City of Oxford, and possibly the Talawanda School District. It actually is going to be built right where my office is right now, where Facilities and Transportation is, over on the old high school site. It's basically federal grant money that's putting a lot of this together and partnered up with the city in Miami. And most of the money's already, as we found out recently, most of the money's already sitting there in place. They're getting ready to start design on it and really hoping to break ground next year sometime. They kind of want, and I'm going to let Dr. Thoreau speak a little bit more to it later on in the presentation when he talks about the concept study. But they're wanting to kind of see if Talawanda's interested in partnering up on this, especially with our transportation department, since there are fuel pumps sitting right there. You know, the Regional Transportation Authority, the hub, the building is going to have bus wash stations and things like that in it. So that's a topic that, you know, I'm sure that we'll have here pretty soon. And, you know, it's basically sitting, like I said, where that's the old high school and where the Facilities and Transportation and the PDC are. And here's just a couple of renderings of what the proposed plan looks like. I went ahead and threw in here. If anybody ever wants to look it up, it's on the Butler County Regional Transportation Authority website, just kind of showing, you know, some concepts. It's not necessarily going to look just like this, but, you know, they just wanted to throw out some concept studies of what it, you know, will pertain. So, and just a couple more quick slides here. You know, some of the things that we're kind of looking at is you know, how are we moving forward as the district with our facilities? What's you know, we've got the Marshall project going on. Our middle school's sitting at 30 years old. You know, what kind of direction are we looking to move in? What's the most cost effective? What's it going to look like for our students and staff in the years to come? And this isn't just a 1 or 2 year plan. This is a multi-year plan that we're kind of looking at. You know, some of the things that we've kind of talked about is right out as you come down University Park Boulevard. You know, what if we did a new Board of Education office? I know, you know, at the old high school, everything used to be right there together. You had the Board of Ed office, you had the Nelson Morrow building, the bus garage, facilities. You know, everything was right there together. What if we've got 154 acres? What if you know, what if we put a new middle school here? I mean, what would that look like? What's the cost effectiveness of it? You know, I kind of just put a yellow dot as you come in University Park Boulevard, you know, off to the right-hand side. You know, what would that be a possible location maybe for a new Board of Education office that maybe, you know, facilities or transportation or the staff and the PDC kind of, you know, end up all, you know, out here in the same thing together. You know, some of the facilities needs, you know, a new Board of Education office with office space for the PDC employees. You know, there's a possibility of, you know, still maybe an Amtrak location being interested in the PDC or the property or something like that. You know, new facilities maintenance space because of the new Chestnut Street hub, transportation because of the new, and possibly a new or a remodel of Talawanda Middle School. What makes most sense? Is it make more sense to move the middle school? Does it make more sense to renovate? You know, so those are kind of some of the things that, you know, that we've been kind of talking about and looking at. You know, the current Board of Education office is 100 years old. There's plenty of ADA compliant issues. The parking's an issue. There's not enough spaces for employees, students, visitors. You know, there's no really office and meeting space to conduct, you know, everyday business at the Board of Ed office. The middle school, it's 31 years old. It's part of the Ohio School Facility Master Plan for the district. You know, I'd love to compare what the cost of new versus remodel, just like we did with Marshall. You know, we compared the cost of remodel, and it just, for really, a few more dollars, it was like, we need to just go ahead and do, a new building. What's a possible build location at the high school look like? If you have all the athletics at the same location, minimize busing between the high school and the middle school, and just have that Talawanda campus feel, with having everything on the same site here. And like I said, Dr. Thoreau is going to speak more about this later on in the meeting, but just the district concept study that we were kind of looking at is to work with Steve Hammond and Paul, the architects that have done basically all the buildings in our district, and kind of develop a program of requirements for the spaces needed, looking at the future of the district, review our land options, our renovation options, kind of develop a bubble diagram as a test fit for a newer renovated option, cost estimates for preferred options, and graphics to convey these potential projects in the future. Does anybody have any questions?
It's obvious that we're going to have to do something pretty quickly if that building is going to be built, or at least started in '21. They're kind of starting the design phase now. It could be later towards the end of '21. It could be early 2022. But the money is sitting there. The money's allotted. There's not a definite date yet. We're still going to meet with them and see what that's looking like as it gets closer. But yes, that is going to happen. Now, we do a lease with Miami for that building, and Cody Powell's reassured me and Dr. Thoreau both that it's not like they're going to walk in and say, okay, you got 30 days to get out of here. So we have a great partnership with Miami, and so it's I think that there will be some work in motion. It's not going to just get sprung on us, but we really do need to look at a long-term plan, with our facilities, transportation, Board of Ed office, and possibly PDC. Because there was an agreement about 2 years ago when we decided to go ahead and do all of this together at that point in time, that they would give us considerable amount of time up
Yes.
front, because they knew that we would have to have time to be able to do something else on our own,
Absolutely.
especially with the fuel tanks.
Sure.
I mean, we get that so cheap right now because we are a part of the conglomerate that does, that's where we get it together. And also with where the buses are parked, and all of our transportation pieces are there. So Miami does have an agreement that is a written agreement that they can't kick us out like overnight. So.
No, and nor do I think that they ever would do that. Like I said, we've talked to Cody Powell over at Miami. He's been more than helpful. And like you said, just with the fuel pumps and stuff like that, with the partnership between the city and Miami and Butler County Regional Transportation Authority, I think that they would really like to see Talawanda, some aspect of Talawanda, a part of that. But we have to see, is it cost effective for Talawanda to be part of that? That's kind of where this concept study kind of started coming into fruition. Let's sit down. Let's see what some numbers look like. Let's see what do we need 30 some acres of property on Kerr Road? Could we turn that into something? Let's sit and talk about what the future of the school district looks like. So that's just kind of where this concept came into play.
I know there's been a lot of discussion previously about that acreage out there on Kerr Road and how it perhaps isn't as usable as when it was
Let's not tell that to the real estate agent, Mary Jane.
But it's out there. People know.
I know.
Because, I wasn't on the board when it was purchased, so I'm not a part of that. But there are a lot of concerns about that property because actually it had come up as discussion when we were talking about the high school.
So that's kind of part of those things. We have a Board of Education office that's 100 years old with 4 parking spaces. I don't know, 5 parking spaces. It's not many. We have the PDC building. It's been so many different things, and these are all buildings that are going to need attention, a lot of attention soon. Or do we just go ahead and start looking at replacements? So.
Well, and we're still in conversation about Amtrak.
Sure.
So, I mean, there are some other parts and pieces that have to be considered in this concept.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's kind of what, all of those is kind of what's brought this together. And I just thought tonight would be a good opportunity, especially for the newer board members, just to bring them up to what Talawanda has and just how much property we have and things like that, so.
Thank you. I think it's a great presentation. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And it kind of helped me update my things too. It's been a while, so it helped me with that.
I had a question on
Yes.
the last slide of concept study, work with SHP. Who's SHP?
That's Steve Hammond and Paul. They are the architects. They designed this high school. They were the architects on Bogan. They were the architects on Marshall. They're the architects on Kramer. We have a really good relationship with them. They help us out with some of these concept studies just to see what the future looks like, what costs look like. When we did the new Marshall project, that was really supposed to be a renovation, but when it came down to it, we were only within like $2 million of being a brand new building. So instead of having to try to disrupt class and do a renovation in there, we were able to go ahead and actually get a brand new elementary school for the most. So, but yeah, that's Steve Hammond and Paul. They're our architects.
So I think that answers my next question, which is, does this concept study cost money? And I assume the answer is yes.
Yes. And I think Dr. Thoreau is going to speak about that later.
$7,000 that we tabled to this meeting, and I don't know if we're going to continue that or if we're going to table it another month when we get to there, but we'll talk about. We started to talk a little bit.
This
about
was
it.
super helpful. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
It was incredibly helpful. I had no idea we own that much property.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot to mow, let me tell you.
It's a lot to think about the flexibility that it gives the district in terms of locating buildings and facilities. Of course, it's also ironic. I mean, yes, we have to look forward. We have to keep our buildings and our facilities upgraded, but man, the timing is horrible right now.
I know.
If we're going to be going back to the voters for a levy to build something, man, that is going to be a tough sell when we're looking at such a deficit, an operating deficit too. So,
but yeah, which is why I think trying to do our due diligence and be transparent with all this is definitely helpful. I mean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Bill? Thank you very much, Bill.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, Mrs. Morris, do we have any visitors or public participation?
We do, just one this evening, and that comes from Amy Shaman. She lives and works in Talawanda School District at her address is 11 Heather Ridge Court here in Oxford. She says, I have a student at Kramer. My question is related to the fall. It would be helpful if the board or the district would have some open discussion meetings for families to attend as the district makes various plans for the fall. This could be a review of the options under consideration, even without 100% decisions on what will occur. Thank you for your consideration of this request, and thank you for all you do for our community's children. And that's the only one we have this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Report of the treasurer.
It is recommended that the board approve the May 11th, 2020 regular session minutes as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abwitz,
Yes.
Dr. Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Passes. It is recommended that the board approve the May 21st, 2020 special session minutes as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion passes. And it is also recommended that the board approve the June 9th, 2020 work session minutes as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Howard,
Yes,
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion passes. It is recommended that the board approve the gifts as presented.
Do I have a motion?
so moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Howard,
Yes,
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
I would like to block E through G, and I would like to recommend that the board block 6E through 6G, as there isn't anything to report on at this time.
Okay, so blocking 6E, which is approval of appropriation modifications, F, approval of appropriation increases or decreases, and approval of the then and now over $3,000, which there are none. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
second.
Please call the roll.
Mr.
Sorry,
Mead?
Discussion? Please call the roll, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Howard,
Yes,
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion passes. It is recommended that the board approve the financial report as presented.
Do I have a motion?
so moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Howard,
Yes,
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, the next item on the list, I'm going to recommend that the board approve the fiscal year 20 final appropriation resolution.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Howard,
yes,
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, I'm going to recommend that the board approve the fiscal year 21 temporary appropriation resolution.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Knight Edwards,
Yes.
Dr. Howard,
Yes,
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, 6K, I'm going to recommend that the board approve the following contracted service agreements for fiscal year 21.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
I
Yeah.
just have a question. There's just a lot here.
There is.
And I'm just, trying to wade through all of these different things. How typical are these charges, these contracts?
Okay. So the Butler County, the very first one, the Butler County ESC, that is very common. This is where our technology staff, our nurses, our success program, our food service director and assistant, and our physical therapist. That one is very common. We do this every year. There could be a few personnel, a few puts and takes, but this one is going to be coming to you every year.
And is there anything built into this depending on changes that we don't know about in terms of what school is going to look like? I mean, are we committed to this?
Yes, because these are our personnel. We are going to need them throughout the school year. Our technology department it has been a pivotal key role in our online education. So all of that staff is going to be needed. The nurses, I can't answer that one. The food service, yes, because we will still be feeding our children. And physical therapist, I honestly can't answer that one. but
We
this-
would have to do that because it's IEP related.
Thank you. In our success program, yes, she will be needed. I consider her one of our social workers.
Good. Okay, thank you.
And then some of the other ones listed in here are all related to student services, special needs,
IEP
IEPs.
services.
What is, could you explain number 3, social communication services for special education? Is that a
That is-
speech language person or, no?
No,
It's number 3.
yeah, social
Warren.
communication services for special education. Is that the student that we send out, or is that the services that we bring in? I can't remember that
We
contract.
send out.
So that is a student that we send out with significant social communication disorder and needs services, IEP. Like, we can't, unfortunately, facilitate that child's education fully in the Talawanda School District. Child needs a lot of it.
That's just one student, correct?
Correct, correct. That is one student.
It's the same student I think we've had for a couple
It-
of years.
You are correct, Mary Jane. Correct.
What are surrogate parent services?
By law, we have to have a surrogate parent appointed in the district that will advocate for students and student needs, and that's just part of the law to do that. And requirement, again, is working with families who may be in the process of becoming identified and need that assistance, or the students who are already identified. And they help families understand what an IEP service, special education service is, and they try to help negotiate the waters.
It's a very important person.
Oh, yeah.
Because there, as you well know, there are a lot of parents who really don't understand the whole
Correct.
process.
Exactly.
And so this went in, what, about 3 years ago? I'm thinking 3 years ago that we must do it. But I find out of many of these things, it's one of the best things for families
Yeah.
who don't understand and don't even know what questions to ask. So I
Thank
think
you.
it's a real support.
I'm not questioning the validity or the need for any of these.
Oh,
I'm just
no.
trying to clarify what in the world they are.
I
And I think it's
understand
helpful
that.
for people who are, watching or,
Yeah.
listening, reading these minutes to have those clarifications too.
I appreciate the questions, because it's good to know exactly like you're saying, because we often like to use a lot of educational jargon, so people don't always understand what's there.
The only other one that is not student education related would be the SWOCA one, and that
Right.
is for our software, the IEP Anywhere, the Dazzle, the Student Dazzle, the grade book, and the software that we use in our department is also our EMIS coordinator is built in there. We share her between two other schools.
And the substitute teachers. Is that, just as a question, is that working out, is that system with that centralized kind of
I will,
substitute system?
I will say it is much better than when we did it on our own.
That's
And
what I'm wondering.
with the
yes.
personnel and staff and trying to mitigate that every single day was awful. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to say every school district, including Butler County ESC, is struggling to find substitutes. I'm very concerned with this COVID virus and pandemic, what the substitute pool may look like or not look like next school year in particular as well. So, but yes, I will tell you, we would have to hire staff to be able to manage this full-time, because there's almost every day somebody that's out.
Right.
And one of the things we talked about, Becky, a couple of years ago was just having a full-time sub that might transition from building to building. Ed, I don't know if you were here when we had that conversation or not, but it's something that tends to come up periodically, and I know of districts who do that. Some of the bigger districts have a full-time sub in every one of their buildings because
Yeah.
they have so many absences that, and depending on the contract, you can't ask to have someone fill in on their plan time or
Right,
whatever.
right.
So-
Well,
We
yeah.
did that last year with
Yep.
Suzette Shaheen, that we actually used her as a sub, as like a building float sub, and she was used every single day.
Right.
I mean, there's always a need.
Well, and I think that's I did some subbing myself, and I gotta say, it is not good work. I mean, it's not dependable, and the pay is horrible.
The pay is
And there's no benefits, there's no job security. So if there are other ways to think of it, and, you know, I'm glad to hear that you've had this conversation, or that we've tried to identify people, because, you know, I've been saying for a long time, if you want good subs, there's got to be job security and there's got to be good pay to go along with it. So I know, yeah, when they instituted the SWOCOG system, I was kind of excited, and then I did it and was like, phew.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Thoreau, with unemployment being what it is, we might have a better chance getting subs.
You are
Kind
right.
of unfortunate for people.
I think that, and I think it all depends what's happening, you know?
Right.
If everybody goes back to work, I think it will be difficult to find subs. Or if kids are staying at home, family members might have to stay home and not be allowed to
Right.
sub because they have to take
Right.
it. So it's that balancing act that you don't want the economy so good. You do want the economy good.
Yes, you
Hear
do.
me on that.
Yes, you do.
But if the economy is really good, you're not going to get subs.
Right.
And if the economy is really bad and people are home and have to take care of their kids because of COVID,
That's bad.
you're not going to get subs.
Right.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah, the only thing I remember about the sub thing is good friend, Mr. Plank. You weren't around when Mr. Plank was here, taught 42 years, and when he retired, he thought, I'm going to be a sub. But he went to you have to sign up with this system, and they wanted to train him how to teach. After teaching 42 years, he was going to have to pay them to attend a workshop. And he said, there's no way. And he became a Starbucks barista uptown. And I think sometimes you can lose some people like him who would have been an awesome sub because this company has rules, and maybe, I don't know if they still have those same rules.
do.
Or if they
And that's
maybe
part-
bend them for a 42-year experienced teacher and say, we don't need to do a workshop with him, because I think the company shuts out some people who might be willing to come back and do things. And losing Dale Plank as a sub in your building was a loss.
There
Well-
are costs associated
Yes.
with just becoming a sub in
Yeah.
that system, and
That's the thing too. People don't realize to get them into the system, the background check, fingerprint, even though you've been a teacher, it's got to be less than a year. Even if you're less than 5, if you're more than a year, you got to be all fingerprinted. And then it's their liability now that they're certifying Ed Thoreau as the sub and saying you're good quality, you know what you're doing, and you're going into the buildings.
One of the things that I encourage my student teachers to do, if they don't get a job right away, is to get on the sub list. Because
Right.
I told them that, you know, when I was an administrator for all those years, when I saw a really good sub, if there was an opening, I would strongly encourage them to interview. Because not only had I seen them, but their peers had seen them as well. And so it was very important. Plus, I did some subbing in between my 2 graduate degrees, and I have to tell you, I have such an appreciation. So,
We do the same. So if you're subbing, we are looking at you for
Yeah.
when we do have openings. Come to Talawanda.
well, if you're under a certain age.
are there any other questions or discussion? I guess we can call the roll.
Dr. Knight Abowitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Dr. Howard,
Yes?
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, next item is 6L. It is recommended that the board approve the second amendment to our transportation agreement with Peterman Transportation. This will extend our contract out through fiscal year '27.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
We talked about this Monday at the work session, the whole bus contract thing. And,
Correct.
you know, Shauna, do you feel that's been worked out? I mean, the auditor claimed we could save all sorts of money, then it comes up that maybe we aren't. And, so we're going to extend the contract 3 years. Have we worked to make sure we're getting a good deal? I
feel
assume we
that
have.
I feel that this is a good deal, and that also does not negate us revising the contract, eliminating routes if need be. We can still do that.
Okay.
Even by extending this contract. So we can make revisions, we can try to eliminate some of the midday routes and the excess charges. All that can still be worked on, but I feel that they're a great partner with our transportation, so I would like to kind of secure their services.
Okay.
And there is a significant savings, correct, Shauna, attached with the renewal?
We have $250,000 in credits, $50,000 a year, and then on top of that, they're going to give us $25,000 annually, not to exceed $175,000. So those are additions to the current contract.
Plus the new buses?
We have 2 new buses, yes, coming this year, and I believe a couple more next year, yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes. It is recommended that the board approve the Alpha Omega cleaning service renewal for Talawanda High School and Kramer for fiscal year '21. I have talked with the partner, and the rates will stay flat to fiscal year '20, no increases. That total contract is $486,000.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Discussion?
Yeah, again, this was something we've been talking about as a result of the audit, how we're going to handle this situation with whether we're going to bring things back in-house, where we're going to right level. So we're just talking about, because none of that we can do like right now anyway, right?
Correct. This
So
is
we
a
need to get
1
this
year.
just for next year.
This is just a one-year
1 year.
renewal.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we did ask Bill to work on a plan, correct? And
Right.
at our work session, so as Shauna has, Mrs. Kowalski has just said, this gives us time, and
Right.
also Bill time to come back with data for us. So I think, this is definitely,
And it needs to be in place.
absolutely,
Yeah.
because
Right.
I really don't want to swing them off or anything.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
We also have them agreeing to no inflation, no CPI increase for next year. So they are keeping all of their costs flat. So that's a good thing.
Good, good. All right.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, next item is 6N, and it is recommended that the board approve the Ohio School Plan liability insurance renewal for fiscal year '21.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes. It is recommended that the board approve the employee dishonesty and faithful performance of duty resolution in lieu of bond.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, next item, it is recommended that the board approve a resolution authorizing the transfer of real property. This is the 1/4 acre in Riley Township.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abwoods?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes,
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next is really just an update on our special needs transportation request for proposals. That the deadline was this past Friday, and we received 3 proposals. We are going to be looking at all the data, analyzing it, and then bringing a recommendation to you guys in July.
this is to replace the carrier that was not, that we were not happy with.
UTF,
Yes,
Yeah.
did they apply?
yes, they did.
I
They
will
were
tell
one-
you that we've been looking at the bids, and the bids look good.
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 I have nothing else.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Stafelsky. Report of the superintendent.
Okay, so, Mr. Mead, I am going to ask you not to vote in 7A, okay? So we're going to do these a little bit differently. Sometimes I block them, but I'm not going to block it today. So I'm asking the board, recommend that the board approve 7A, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's an approval of a teacher contract for next year, the approval to amend a teacher contract, it's an acceptance of a resignation, and it's another acceptance of a resignation.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Knight Abwoods?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Abstain.
And then I am asking that the board approve 7B1, which is approval of 1-year and 2-year limited employment educational assistant contracts. I'm blocking it. And 7C, there are no supplemental recommendations at this time.
Okay, so I need a motion, please, for 7B1 and 7C.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abwoods?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion carries.
At this time, I'd like to call Matt Rand to the microphone, please. And last meeting at the work session, we had a conversation, and I said that I would ask our Director of Technology to come. And it was in relationship to the Chromebooks and our iPads. And right now, the amount of time that we turn them over. What would happen if we tried to delay it out? And he will explain that a little bit more. But I also want to remind you, when you looked at the audit that was conducted by the state, they said we were right on track with what typical districts do with their one-to-one in the turnover and replacement and fixing. So with that, I've asked Matt to come and talk to us. So, Matt, I know we talked earlier. Could you explain a little bit about the process and what would happen if we needed to or wanted to push back 1 year and not purchase anything next school year? What would happen or could possibly happen?
Okay, so right now we currently have a 4-year device cycle. The devices that we have, we expect them to last 4 years. Lenovo and Google, I say Lenovo because that's the device that we currently have. They basically have an agreement for automatic updates, and they typically last between 4 to 6 years. The device that we have currently is on a 5-year cycle. At the end of that 5-year cycle, they will no longer auto update. And at that point, they are no good in Ohio State testing. They cannot be used. So we would not be able to do any online testing with the devices that we own after that time frame. So with the discussion being, could we push them back? Well, technically we could, because we are not going to expire until, with our 3 different sets, we are going to expire in 2023 and 2024, okay? So we could push them back a year, but the problem that I see with that is, with our 4-year cycle, we alternate buildings and grade levels on the purchases. So we're going to get to an end window where, yeah, we're probably going to save a little bit of money this year currently, but we're going to deal with it again in 2 years when we have to buy, instead of 1,200 devices, we could be buying every device for the whole district at that point because we postponed it. Does that make sense? Because, you know, during this cycle, yeah, this year we're buying for grades K, 1, and 2, and possibly 3, okay? But if we postpone that, next year we will be purchasing for THS. At that point, we'd also be purchasing for K, 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to have a bigger purchase next year, which is not part of the original IT forecast. So yeah, the discussion could be had. Yeah, we could postpone it, but next year we're going to have to come up with more money to compensate for it.
Mr. Rand, can I also ask you, okay, so what about this year if we had to offer online services for our students, and I'm not saying we're doing that, but we could at some point in time be closed due to COVID, or what would be the implications of pushing back to and having all the devices in students' hands? Would there be any?
Currently, we're still in the safe zone because our GADS account, which is our Google admin account, everything is still up to par, if you will. So this coming school year, everything would be fine. We're not expiring any devices this year or anything like that. The following year would be an issue. So this current school year, we could support virtual online learning. The problem that we're going to have is the next school year.
And one of the concerns that I had voiced at the work session was the fact that the devices have been used heavily since we've been closed.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that students weren't using them for homework and that kind of thing, projects and research and all that, but I would say that they've probably been used 2-3 times more intensely than what they would have normally been. So that was the other concern that I had voiced, and that's why Dr. Thoreau said, let's just have Matt come and respond to that.
Absolutely.
Because they haven't been brought back, right?
Correct. They have not been brought
So
back.
they haven't been seen or serviced or whatever. So
Right.
that's a concern that I would have just looking from the outside in.
Absolutely. So we're still able to push our automatic updates out to the device because it still goes through all of our filtering policies and everything that's in place. But knowing their condition, we don't know.
Right.
Because, you know, if it has a cracked screen or it's completely damaged or lost or anything, we don't have the staff to say, hey, you know, little Matt Rand, where's your device? You know, oh, well, we're not going to know until they come back. The only ones that we were to account for this year is senior devices. So
Right.
we had a great turnout with that. We only had 2 unreturned devices, and they're in lockdown, and we have discussions all in place on getting them back. So they're basically paperweights at this point on those 2 devices.
Okay. Because there's insurance on them as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
When we replace devices, what happens to the old ones?
We typically do a buyback program. So what we'll do is whenever we expire a device, we will go around and replenish loaner pools because we expire after 4 years, but the Google does not expire them until 5 sometimes. So if there's still an automatically updated device, I go in, I replenish loaner pools. Loaner pools consist in every building or exist in every building. That way, you know, a student does not bring a device in that day, a battery goes dead. We have loaners where they can go to the media center and get the device. If they're not put into the loaner pool, then we do buybacks. So Sometimes on damaged devices, it's a recycling program, Greenwave, Cohen Brothers, and basically they're just sold back as a scrap. Other companies will go in and they will bid on them, but we typically do a buyback program.
So we do generate some monetary return on those.
Some.
Some.
Don't get very excited about
I
the
was gonna
number. I think our last buyback on Chromebooks, and it was right around $300 to $3,600. I mean, it wasn't. Yes, we do get some back, but it's not like it's a win.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that wasn't a lot of devices, but it's not like we're getting rich.
Right.
So we still have consistency within each building for if something happens over the weekend to a device and they come in Monday morning to the media center, there are still, what, 20, 30 in each building?
Roughly 100 in each building for loaners.
Okay, okay.
So loaners are also used whenever a cracked screen. So if or warranty work, if we have to send a device out, so a student could have a loaner for several weeks at times.
Okay.
So that's why our loaner pools are typically around 100.
Yeah, I know my granddaughter, hers went down one Friday night, and she came in Monday morning, and they handed her one and took care of hers, and then gave her hers back when it came back.
Yeah. So before COVID-19, we were able to do more hands-on, repair while they're still in the building. The approach we're taking now is whenever they hand us the device, we more or less set it aside, let it sit for 3 to 4 days. We clean it. So we just basically do a quick exchange. They're in the building less, so that's why we're just doing a direct exchange.
There other questions or comments for Matt?
Yeah, Matt, why don't you talk briefly about the Chromebook insurance that we collect yearly and how you utilize that money?
We do. That money, basically, I think it's grades 5 through 12.
It is.
We are charging $40 per student, and that money is used to replace cracked screens, bad batteries, broken hinges, complete loss of a device. And we do pretty well on spending all that money every year. Last year we had some left over, but then after the summer break, we spent a lot of it because we had some devices out over summer for summer school. This was our first year letting high school students keep them throughout the whole summer.
And that's a requirement that the insurance is paid before the student gets it, correct?
That is, yes. Yep, for any device that's going home. So the
Right.
younger grades, the device stays in our buildings, we do not charge that.
Right, but that's why it starts at 5th grade.
You can do a payment plan, work with the building secretaries. If they work with the building secretaries, they can do a payment plan. So if a family does not have the $40 all at once, they can give $1, every week. They can give $5 every week. So they just make arrangements with the front office.
And I will say that that's for all school fees that may be owed, that
Yes.
payment plans can be worked out
Yes.
at the building.
Right. I just didn't realize that the insurance was in that same process. I really appreciate that because $40 could be a lot for a family.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we don't stop them from learning. Even if they're unpaid, we give them a loaner device. We make them check in every morning at the media center. We assign it to them. We just expect it back at the end of the day. But they do not take a device home until that is paid or there's some sort of agreement where they're attempting to make.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
Before COVID, and obviously everything changed with all these devices going home as the primary means of instruction, are we tracking the usage of these devices, especially in those early elementary grades? Are they being used every day? How are they being used every day?
I can't say I have it tracked with data. You're going to see a wide range of use, even within certain grade levels. It comes down to how the teacher is comfortable using the device and what platforms they have implemented in the classroom. But we see them used quite often. I mean, when we go in and look at the data and the amount of stuff that's being used on our network each day, we are seeing, I could give you how many devices sign in each day, but we see a lot of traffic on our network, yes.
The reason I'm asking that, again, I'm just kind of always thinking about spending money, spending money, spending money. And one of the things from the audit was the note that not all other districts are doing a one-to-one policy. I'm all in favor of it. I think it's important, I think it's great, but I think we need to be able to respond to our constituents and our stakeholders about whether or not a one-to-one policy at every grade level is the most sensible or practical or useful strategy financially. And again, with COVID, everything changed, and that put us in a really good position that we already had that. I know a lot of those other districts were really struggling and having a lot of trouble because they didn't have devices and they didn't have, a lot of their students didn't have access. So I think it's basically a good thing, but I'm wondering, you know, how we can justify that expense through the entire span of the grades.
The best way it's justified is really what pushed one-to-one originally is state testing. Every student has to be able to test within a certain limited time span. Whenever we had labs in the building, instead of being one-to-one, if you track how long it would take to do state testing, it would take a month or two to get every student cycled through.
Mm-hmm.
So really, one-to-one was pushed because of state testing. That's 3 through 12. And at that point, I think the district just said, it makes more sense to do it K through 12 because they have to have that experience on these devices before we just say, hey, here's your third grade test. Oh, good luck using your device. And that's really what pushed it originally.
We also do vendor assessments. We use STAR now and move into MAP, and that goes into the younger grade levels as well. And everything's computerized now. And Matt, remember the second grade teachers, they had iPads, and they don't want iPads. They want to go to the Chromebooks because of the more features that you can do. And they're saying that their second grade kids are ready for that. They're beyond the iPads.
Mm-hmm.
So we are seeing usage. I know when I'm doing walkthroughs, I see them at various stages, like Matt says, but they are being used. And when they're advocating for it at the younger levels, and believe it or not, you guys know that, everybody knows this, kids are really good at young age manipulating computers. Quicker, faster, and easier. They have no fear, and they can do a lot more than what we can do. And I think this is a good way to prepare them. I know it is expensive. I get that. But I think it is an expense that prepares them beyond the state tests. It gives them information at their fingertips, teachers at their fingertips. They're able to assess kids' needs, and then they're able to use that information to provide enrichment or remediation as needed.
Thank you. Again, I support the policy. I think it's important, but I think we have to be prepared too to, like you said, it's expensive, and moving forward, we have to be able to justify every expense that we're agreeing to. So thank you for that explanation. And
I think, like you just said, though, Becky, one of the things that we didn't have to worry about with what we had now, March 13th and on, because like CPS, they struggled so much because so many of their students didn't have.
Right.
And they didn't have a way to get them to them. And so there was a lot of lag in student achievement for a lot of districts because they didn't have it. And we don't know what's going to happen. So,
right.
So I think what I hear you saying, Matt, is that we could push it off a year, but we'd end up paying down the road more.
Yeah, because the following year, we're going to have a lot more devices, because we do this basically every year. We're buying student devices and staff devices. It's broken down into a 4-year cycle. So as soon as that 4th year is done, we're restarting a new one. So yeah, we could skip this year, but next year we're going to have a lot more devices purchased. So.
And we started out with the high school when we did the purchasing. So as you said, when they come back online, it's going to be a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Matt? Thank you very much, Matt. This was very good information.
Yeah.
Thank
if you have
you,
any
Matt.
questions, email me. I'll reply through emails.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, Lindsay Gregg, Director Gregg, she is watching on the YouTube link, so she's not here due to the numbers that were allowed. So I'm going to take over this for her. We are recommending that the board approve the second reading for the 2021 school fees.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
This next one, I am asking that the board approve a contracted service agreement with Butler County ESE Educational Service Center to assist in the search and locating the next Talawanda treasurer.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, this is information regarding the Amtrak, Nelson Morrow Building, BCRTA facility, new board office, all of this. We had talked a little bit about it at the last meeting, and we were going to table it to this meeting. And with Mr. Otto not being here today, because he couldn't be here today, I don't know if we want to continue to discuss it or push it back and we can table it again. But again, what I'm asking for is eventually for the board to approve a plan for the superintendent, interim treasurer, and Talawanda School District staff to investigate a partnership with other agencies to possibly build, lease, or develop IT ideas for a new office for the Board of Education, facilities, transportation, or mixed-use office, up to $7,000. And it would be done by our architects that we mentioned earlier, SH&P. And Bill talked a little bit about it tonight as well. What could come out of this, I know it's $7,000, and I know that we need to look at our money, but I want us to look not only short-term, but long-term. And it may come out through this study that long-term and money-wise, it is not advantageous to go and build your own facilities or your board office. It might be advantageous to buy into the BCRTA transportation and be a part of that and have our buses stay there and our facilities there, or maybe not. But I think we need to start looking at what we need to do. We had our first finance meeting too with our committee members, and we talked a little bit about this, and we talked about the audit too. And the finance committee is not going to tell you what to do, but they're going to come up with ideas, suggestions, recommendations, that type. But this is something there too, that we want to look at our capital plan and have a long-term plan as well as the short-term, so we start chipping away at it. And the answer might be, again, like we said, the finances aren't there, or it's not worth it, or I'm glad we knew that. What I personally don't want to do is to say, okay, we're going to buy into the Butler County Regional Transportation, and we say, go ahead, and then they say it's so much money, and we put in so much money, and then we realize, you know what? We could have built a facilities pole barn or something like that, or a level a parking lot at the high school, or do a board office or something like that. Because those are the unknowns that we don't know in comparison. And then when we look at it, like, oh, that makes sense. We should buy in or not buy in.
So what's the feedback you've gotten from the finance committee?
So the finance committee, we met, and Sean was a part of that too. We went over the audit. We've talked about them. They're very supportive of what is needed for Talawanda and coming up with ideas to help. They understand the money issue. We explained the money issue. They also have a very good understanding of the difference between capital funds and operating funds, which a lot of community members don't understand that. So capital funds are a different pot of money. Sometimes it comes from like bond levies, and sometimes it comes from improvement levies, or it comes from the state. We get state money in capital funds, but you can never use that money for operating, like your electricity, your salaries, anything like that, your operating budget. So they have a good understanding of that. They also know that we are having some financial issues. They understand that our spending and the money that we have lost is really impacting us. So, but what they also want to do is they want to have knowledge. They want to have the knowledge to say, okay, we have financial issues. We get that. That's in our back of our mind. But this is the smartest thing to do with our money, short-term and long-term wise. What they don't want is going in, like I told you, kind of blindly, like, okay, let's just accept this. And we kind of piecemeal stuff together. And then we find out that we've wasted money or spent more money that needs to be done. So again, we've only met one time. We just had the work session. I said we would be getting back to them after the work session. And they're looking for some guidance and direction too from the board in what direction that they're going so that they can start digging into the work as well.
If there, will this plan also include the middle school needs or potential needs?
We absolutely can do that. I know Bill has talked a little bit about it. It was a few years ago, and Bill can correct me on this, that they did a study, and at that point in time, the middle school would be recommended to have a renovation. When it hits a certain percent of the cost, then if it's less than that, it's renovation. If it hits that percentage and it's over that, that means it's not worth renovating, is you go and rebuild because it's almost that cost to do that. Bill, correct me, wasn't the last time we did it about 2-3 years ago, and it was renovation? And I know Mike Davis, the past treasurer too, that was the next step that he was going to be looking at, was determining what to do with the middle school to renovate. So yes, we can put that in because it may make sense. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but maybe it's such that you build a new middle school and you build it onto next to the high school, like Bill was talking about, shared facilities, and then maybe the middle school becomes the new hub for transportation, facilities, Board of Education. I'm not saying that's the answer, because I know it would be expensive to build a middle school, but those are the things you would look at. So yes, we can include the middle school and what that might entail.
And so are you asking or suggesting, I guess, that you are making a facilities plan?
So what I want to do is update our capital improvement facilities plan, absolutely. Because we've gotten to the part where all the elementaries are going to be built. Marshall will be built soon by next year. And the next step was looking at the middle school, but also Mr. Davis also talked about the board office, because there were some even discussions about some land located on Brown Road that's owned by Miami. So those were the next steps coming. I'm going to tell you I'm not in favor of that because it's a house, but I'm telling you at this point in time, let's look at that part of the capital improvement plan, because we need to look longer term, because we're coming near the end of our facilities plan.
Great.
Well, it's the OSFC as well. So
Correct.
So that also is why we get basically two options. This is what it would cost to do this, to renovate. This is what it would build. And so that's been part of the whole building plan that we've had.
You're
And
absolutely
this
correct.
is the last part on that plan.
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion or questions?
Would we like to table it for when Mr. Otto's here, or do we want to go forward? I know, and that's part of
We'll
the
leave that to you.
discussion, I think.
What's the pleasure of the board?
What are y'all looking at me for?
Because you're one of four.
You know, on the one hand, I'm uncomfortable moving forward without everybody here. On the other hand, we've already tabled this once, and kind of feel like we're just kicking the can down the road again. So, I don't know, what do the rest of you think?
I think the case has been made tonight that we need to update our facilities plan. We know we're going to need facilities, and there's a lot of converging factors that make now a good time to be doing this, except for the $7,000, but good plans cost a little money
Right.
for consulting. So I'm friendly to it, personally, and I don't know why Mr. Otto would not be. I haven't heard him voice anything, but
Yeah, I'm okay with going on and voting. And then if it's 2-2, then Chris can come next month
Break the tie.
and break the tie. Otherwise,
Yeah.
So I will call for the roll, please.
I don't think I had a
we
motion.
didn't get him.
Okay, I'll make the recommendation.
Make the recommendation, then
All
we'll have
right,
that.
here we go.
Can I
It-
say something before you do that?
Absolutely.
I'm really in favor of this plan of us spending upwards of $7,000. It's not an automatic $7,000, it's at most $7,000. And that is going to help us figure out our exact needs and what they're going to cost. And so we can't plan and budget for these bigger items if we don't know how much they're going to cost. We don't know if it's going to be better to go with the Butler Rural Transit or go off on our own. We don't know this unless we've got the hard concrete data, and this will give us that data. So
You
I'm
spoke
hoping you
more
guys-
eloquently than I did over 10 minutes. I should have let you speak. Thank you.
So you have a recommendation?
I do. It is recommended that the board approve a plan for the superintendent, interim treasurer, and the Talawanda School District staff to investigate a partnership with other agencies to possibly build, lease, or develop ideas for a new office for the Board of Education, facilities, transportation, or mixed-use office, and up to $7,000 to investigate and secure a concept drawing by SH&P. So it's the facilities, and we would look at the middle school as well.
Okay, so now, with the recommendation, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and I know
Thank
this
you
is
very
really
much.
tough in this really time, but I think it's money that's going to be well spent. All right, next. Before I start this, we did a survey. We had a conversation, first of all, at the board meeting about later starts. Starting the middle school and high school, pushing their start times back 30 minutes, and that would mean their end times would push back 30 minutes. And then at the elementary level, we didn't need 30 minutes because we now are taking over pre-K, so we had that spot in the middle. So we only have to push back the elementary time, their start time 15 minutes, and their end time 15 minutes. So Mrs. Morris, who's sitting in the audience right now or in the chair, she did a social media, I'm going to say push, communication, campaign to get people. We talked about this at the board. I'll repeat that. So she did a direct email to every family at Talawanda, and what she did too was, it was all current. Go ahead.
So we did a direct email to every family in Talawanda School District. And what we provided in that email is the research that has already been shared publicly on 3 other occasions, plus a board presentation by Amy Masechko, and also the survey data that I shared with you on email a few weeks ago. And the rationale behind that doing the direct email service through our all-call system versus doing a Facebook survey is because we wanted to hear from current parents instead of all of the folks that might just be weighing in, maybe even from other communities or whatever. So originally, we had planned a social media push. We pulled that really almost at the last minute, so that we didn't get clouded information, and that the responses that were coming in either to my office, although Dr. Thoreau got most of the responses, were coming from Talawanda parents. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So I apologize. Yes. So again, we wanted parent input.
Correct.
We didn't want somebody that wasn't sending kids to our district or
Correct.
even lived in our district to be
Correct.
putting their input in. So with that, I can tell you, we did not get many people that responded. So I'm assuming that even being a direct email, if it was a problem, people would have responded. So we had 15 yeses and 2 nos for that, which is not many. But I know Mrs. Morris worked with one person who was a no, so it would have been 3, but when he found out the data, he just heard it and didn't read any of the research or anything, and she had a conversation, not to convince him, just to let him know because he had questions. He flipped his vote. He's like, oh, well, yeah, that's a yes. I had a conversation with a young mother in an elementary, her kid's in elementary right now, and she's worried about coming home 15 minutes later, and her vote was a no. And I told you, that's perfectly fine. That's what you wanted to have. But then she said, but when my kid gets to junior high, middle school, I wanted to switch. So, I mean, they understand that condition. So I just wanted to lay down that groundwork, that we've done some of that groundwork. Research is very important on this subject. Any bit of time that we can give to our high schoolers and middle schoolers to sleep will be good for them. 15 minutes at an elementary level, yeah, that is getting home late for some of our kids that have an hour route. I understand that. We appreciate your sacrifice, because if this goes forward, it will benefit all kids, and when your kids become middle schoolers and high schoolers. So with that, I'm going to make the recommendation. I recommend the start and end times for the high school and middle school to be pushed back 30 minutes, and the elementary buildings to be pushed 15 minutes, starting in the 2020-2021 school year.
Can I ask you to make the recommendation, not just this pushing it back, but what the specific times are?
So I need to look that up, to be honest with you.
Because I don't really even know what the
Can
start
you?
and end
Because
times are.
it's, the high school is first.
So the current start time at THS is 7:15, so we would then start at 7:45.
8 o'clock middle school, right?
Yes. Then 8 o'clock at TMS. That gives time for drop off at THS, and then the second drop off is the middle school. And then currently we start class, our final bell at the elementary level at all 3 elementaries is 9:10. And so then delaying that 15 minutes. 5.
And what are the end times?
Yes, 9:25. Let's see, 3:50, I think.
For the elementary is 3:50 plus 15 minutes, so it'd be about 4:05. And at the high school, they get out at 2:20
So 2:20 is the
plus
last bell.
30 is 2:50.
Yeah.
And then it would be 3 o'clock at the
At the middle school.
Middle school.
Correct.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're welcome.
that.
Sorry, I'm doing it in my head. And then, of course, there's Wednesdays. which
Well,
they get out a little bit early.
Right. Wednesdays are not going to change.
Yeah.
Right. So you've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
A second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion pass.
Okay, these next ones we're going to talk about, I'm going to do one at a time because Mr. Mead's going to have to abstain from one of them, and I'll tell him which one in a second. So I is the I am on I, right?
Yes.
I is the approval of a memo of understanding for the student activity athletic club supplementals. So in this, we have agreement from TEA that for next school year, and just for next school year, because MOUs are only good for 1 year, that we can prorate supplementals. And how the prorate would work is they would get 10% when they start it. So the 10%, they could start skills conditioning, as long as they're following the governor and all those recommendations, they can start their trainings. And then when they start getting into the season, if the season was to be canceled, you would get a prorated version of whatever it is. Say 50% of the season goes on, you get 50%. 40% goes on, you get 40%. Or if the season never gets off the foot, the only thing you'll get is the 10% because you've done the skills training, a part of it. So that's what this memo of understanding is. So I'm asking that the board approve the TEA Board of Education supplemental MOU.
I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
I want to thank the union for kind of going along with this, understanding that
Yes.
the situation we're in. I think that was really helpful to us.
They came right to the table,
Right.
I will tell you.
That was very important because legally, we
Could
could
miss.
have been in a bind.
Yes.
And so this was very important, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, this is the one that Mr. Mead is going to abstain from. I'm asking for the approval of the memo of understanding with TEA again regarding the one-time retirement incentive. At the last work session, you approved the one-time incentive. So our next role was for Shauna and I to work with the two associations to make sure that they were on board and they understood it, and they are. Again, they came to the table, they understand the importance of this, so there was no issues on that. So I'm asking for this approval with Mr. Mead to abstain for this.
Do I hear, excuse me, a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion?
I'm grateful for Ms. Tefelsky for putting this together. I think it's a great idea, and so thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now, I'm asking for the board to, I'm recommending that the board approve an MOU, Memo of Understanding, with the Talawanda Classified Staff Association regarding the one-time retirement incentive. It's the same thing, but instead of with teachers, it's with classified staff. And again, union came right to the table and worked with us on this.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We're almost there, everybody. So this is the first reading of a policy revision. Mr. Malone is also watching through the YouTube channel, and we can talk about that too as well. So It is the standards-based teacher evaluation. So we need to change our language by September. So we're doing well on this. There is a new teacher evaluation system called OTES 2.0. We are currently using OTES 1.0 to evaluate teachers. And it is a framework that has elements in there that administrators go in and they observe teachers, and teachers are rotated on a cycle through that plan. And if a teacher is rated ineffective, he or she is put on an improvement plan, is coached and worked with to get the scores up. If they're developing skilled and accomplished, they're doing okay. They may not have an improvement plan. They could have an improvement plan, but they would have a professional growth plan. And on the old Otis 1.0, you had data that you had to collect and use. The data came from one of three sources: a vendor assessment, which is STAR that we gave, and that's for reading and math that we gave. SLO, student learning objectives, where teachers through a committee made up their own baseline and post-test, and you had to demonstrate that the children actually grew. And then the value added, which came through the state assessments. And as you know, this past year, we couldn't do the state assessments, so nobody's going to be able to get value added scores, and it caused quite a problem with the evaluation system. OTES 2.0 has condensed the framework, it's made it a little bit easier to use, and it's embedded the data into the framework. In Otis 1.0, you had 50% the observation, 50% the data. Now it's 100%, and the data is embedded into the elements, which makes sense because you want the high quality data to show up through the elements. Again, you still get the same ratings of ineffective, developing, skilled, or accomplished. Skilled and accomplished, you can evaluate on not an every year system. Accomplished every 2 years, skilled every other year, because they're doing well, but they still have to do a growth plan and you still have to do an observation. The difference with Otis 2.0, the first observation is an overall observation, just like Otis 1.0. You go in, you look, you write it up, you have a pre-conference, you have a post-conference, you have a discussion with the teacher. Otis 2.0 takes it in a different direction. The teacher and administrator have to work together, and they have to identify at least one focus or one area, and it could be more than one area. So the second observation that comes is based upon that agreed upon focus or need. And sometimes if it's an ineffective teacher, you may be telling them what that focus needs to be on. And then you're going in and you're building evidence for that focus. And you're doing that with an observation, walkthroughs, and then your last observation in the second semester would continue that focus and where you're going on. So that's the difference. Versus it being very wide, it becomes very narrowed and focused in order to move teachers forward. So in that, this is just the first reading of it. If you have questions, please let me know. We will bring it back next month. We also, as a board, decided not to implement it this coming school year, which was a great thing to do. You were very wise on that because, as you see in the legislation, they already know that there's going to be problems with that. So we would not be implementing OTES 2.0 until the following school year, but we have to get this policy in place by September. So that's why we're bringing it up. And again, if you have questions, please give myself or Dennis a call or email. Are there any questions right now about that?
You did a nice job this afternoon when you sent out clarifications.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I thank you for asking that question because sometimes, too, I forget my own world and the education jargon, and I just move on and think, I assume that people understand it. So I appreciate that. Okay, the last thing for me is other. Update for next year. So we had a comment already, public comment. What are we going to do for next school year? I can tell you that we are having several meetings. We keep our eyes on legislation. What we're hearing from the governor pretty much is school districts are going to be allowed to make local decisions. Great. Health department saying, well, wait. There's some principles and guidelines that you're going to have to follow. We just received them today. So, and I want people to understand, we follow Butler County Health Department, which is different from Middletown, which is different from Hamilton, which is different from any other county. So those guiding principles can and do look different health department to health department. So we have a huge group that we all are, I have many staff members on it, including Shauna's on part of it, Holly's on it, that are here tonight, that we have been working on this, and we meet every Thursday virtually, and we've been having lots of discussions, and we've been trying to keep uniform as much as possible. We know every district has its unique differences, but what we're afraid of is neighboring district is doing something totally different than neighboring district. And I'm going to tell you that's going to happen because there is low incidence or no incidence of COVID-19 in some of our neighboring districts, like Preble County, for instance, and they have a different health department. We here have been hit hard. And it's not that we've had a ton of cases, but we actually have lost a staff member, unfortunately. So that's a problem. I can tell you that we are meeting with our leadership tomorrow, our entire team. This is what we're looking at this point in time. Hear me, this point in time, because it can change tonight, it can change tomorrow or in a week. We are looking at providing everybody coming back in August. We are probably looking, we had the students coming back on a Wednesday. I'm probably going to bring it back to the board and ask the board to give us a few more PD days to prepare. And then the students would start the following week on a Monday. We have to train our staff on cleanliness, trauma, working with our kids, welcoming back our kids, how to use our electronics better, because there could be a date and time that we have a spike or a case in a classroom, in a building, or the district that the health department says we're closed down for 14 days or maybe even longer. So we're going to have that online option being planned out too as a backbone if we need it. But we're looking at bringing them back, and what does that mean for buses? So I know a lot of school districts have already done surveys. And I understand the purpose of that. We are waiting to do our survey because what we are going to do is provide options to you. So we're going to say we're coming back full. That means on the bus they're going to be full. We are not going to mandate students to wear masks. They can wear masks. We are going to mandate adults to wear masks unless there's some underlying condition, and that we'll take that by, case by case situation. So students would ride that bus. They would come into the building. It would be the parent responsibility to make sure that they're checking temperatures every day. Students would come into the building, we'll stagger release. These are the details that we're going to work out. They'd come into the classroom. The classrooms are going to stagger them as far apart as possible, which isn't going to be 6 feet in some of our classrooms. It's going to be more like 4 feet. And you might have even heard CPS's plan too. They talked about that. It's going to be like 4 feet apart. Students that get sick or have any type of symptom or possible symptom, we're asking parents to keep them home. Because the same thing, you want other children to stay home because you want to keep our schools open. And we all have that. I believe all of our parents want our kids to come back to school, be safe, be healthy, and do well with this COVID-19 and not bring anything home to them. But if families don't partner with us, we could have cases brought in and we could have case spread, which we don't want to have. We'll have to work with our nurses and how to isolate students if someone comes down with a fever, because it doesn't mean they have COVID, but we're going to take those steps to make sure that we're protecting our students. We're going to teach our staff how to do hand washing again. I know they know how to do it, but we've got to implement it with our kids to make sure that we're doing that. We are in the process, thank you, Shauna. She has purchased lots of masks, and we also got 270 free face shield masks, and that's probably good for elementary students or students with special needs that you need to see their mouths and deform words and letters and stuff like that, but we have those as well. We also have a mask campaign going on, so if there's anybody out there, contact Holly Morrish. We need donated masks, because what we want to do is offer it to our students. So if you want to wear a mask, you can. And we have washer and dryers, so we can wash and dry them in our buildings, and they can be ready for the next day. If we have kids that we know that can take them back and forth, we can do that as well. But what we don't want is dirty masks going home and dirty masks coming back. So that's why some of that control in our hands helps us as well. So we're looking at full return. Now, we know that there may be some families that don't want to send their kids yet. They're a little bit nervous, or we don't need to know the reason. So we're also looking at planning an online option for those families that want to stay. So again, the survey that will come out will ask you, do you want to come back, or do you want to participate in the online? Are you going to send your child on the bus? Are you going to drop off your child? And we need numbers. We need as best numbers as we can, because we have to change how we're going to do drop off and pick off, because we already know, like in the middle school and at Marshall, there's a lot of long lines, and no longer will you be able to come into the buildings to pick up your kids. We're going to have to stop visitors from coming. We need to try to stop any type of contamination that comes in. And then Bill Hubbard's and his staff will be trained and are trained on cleanliness. And then we're going to have to talk about cafeteria. And those will be decisions that we're working on tomorrow. A lot of schools are doing like 50% of the cafeteria, so that means double the amount of lunches, which can be done. Some are doing lunches in their classrooms and then doing cleanup. I want to get my administrators and staff involved in those decisions. Again, we're starting tomorrow. So this is what we're moving forward with. And yes, we can possibly maybe have some community input, but let's get our plan out there. Let's get a survey out there so that we can actually have some numbers. Now, again, if there's a spike and they don't allow us to open, or they allow us to open for a week or a couple weeks or a month and we have to close, we need to beef up that online part and be ready for that as too. So we're going to plan for the worst case scenario, but I think we're going to be on the best case scenario, and we're going to be able to bring students in. We had thought about a hybrid model, and the hybrid model would be bringing in kids like every other day. That's not good. And we know that. Kids need, and we know instruction, kids need to be back face to face. And I'm telling you, the teachers are clamoring to me to get the kids back. We need our kids. We need our kids as safely as possible. Let's figure this out. So with that, that's what we're going to be looking at. So if anybody has questions, you can always email me about it, or you can give me a call, and I will try to answer your questions as much as possible. But tomorrow is a big planning day to move us forward on that. Do you have any questions or comments, anybody, on that before I go to my last item?
Just a quick one.
Yep.
You're not talking about having any testing capabilities in the district. That would not be something that we get involved with.
So testing capabilities, I'm sorry.
Testing for the virus, like,
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no.
No.
Great question. I thought when I hear testing, I go to
know,
state
I know.
testing.
We do a
That's
lot of
all.
testing,
That's
right.
all in my head. State
yeah, the corona testing, right?
Yeah, but no, we will not do COVID testing in here. I will tell you that we're hearing that there are more tests out there, and now I'm hearing there's more drive-up sites that you can go to and possibly get, even if you don't have symptoms. But I also will tell you that I know we just had a recent incident at the middle school, The person did not have COVID, but developed the fever, and that person struggled to find a testing site that would test her because she was not sick enough. And they would sending her home. And what had happened was her doctor actually got with our Butler County Health Department, and that's the only way she was able to get tested. And we had to close down the middle school during that time to ensure that it was clean and everybody was safe, which we were, and it wasn't COVID-19. But I can tell you we followed the protocols for it. So no, we won't be doing the testing, but our nurses will be trained in identifying, as they are, nurses. The new nurse that we're getting from New Miami, she's actually in our groups, and she is a leader in the group and helping all of the medical professionals in our group, Tanya. So that's going to be a real great service to us that she's participated in this information already. So yeah, any other questions, comments? All right, lastly, extracurricular skills and conditioning program update. So thank you for passing the memo of understanding for the pro rating. And I know we gave specific directions to our athletic director, Wes Cole, on what he could and could not do. We had 3 people that could do the skills training. They're doing groups of 10. They're doing really good. They're doing cleaning of it. They have some kids on the field. They have some kids in the weight room. They're 6 feet apart. All is doing well. So now what I'd like to do, since you passed that, and I don't really need a recommendation, is since we know it's going to be prorated with the supplemental, they would get their 10%. And if that sport never existed because it's closed or canceled, or they only work 10% more, they would only get that 10% more. I would like to recommend, I'm going to say we're going to do, because I don't need a recommendation. You can just nod your heads if you're in agreement, that we're going to do for all sports and extracurricular activities. So that's marching band, any of those types of activities. So what they would do is they would need to go through the principal, myself, or Wes Cole, make sure that we have a plan in place. Dr. Howard, you already talked about Mr. Marston. He's on it, and he's got a plan already in place. But I know they're going to start after July 1 when our facilities actually open up. But I am going to make that contact, and we can move forward. I think it's good. The kids are doing well, and we opened it. It worked. So let's expand it a little bit wider, and if it doesn't work, we can always narrow it down. Any questions or comments?
So as you said, the other condition is when the facilities open up as well.
Well, that marching band doesn't want to do it until the
Right.
facilities opens, but they could come now because
They could be out.
they could be outside, and they talked, that's his plan. Mike's got a plan all for it. They could be out on the field more than 6 foot apart.
Right.
So we can bring in all the other sports and I'm going to say all the extracurriculars, because they're not all athletics.
Right.
And if they have a plan and it's skills, training, conditioning, then I think we could go forward. And that's typically what you do during the summertime.
And I know they've also, the Ohio High School group has also done away with the fact that coaches can't have contact during a certain period of time because of all this that's happening. So
Correct.
now they've been able to open it up.
Correct. So I think it's a good step. We tried it. It's working well. We've had no problems, no COVID sickness, illness. They're following it to a T. So I think we're ready to move forward to the next phase. Thank you.
Thank you. Items from the board members?
I just want to quickly thank Andy Zimmerman and Matt Rand for all the technological help and filming of the meetings. It's appreciated.
The others? Hearing none. Let's go to future board events. The next regular meeting will be July 9th, and then August 17th, September 21st, October 12th, November 16th, and December 14th. And it will most likely be in person unless something changes.
Exactly. I keep wishing that they would move that 10 number. They did it for weddings and stuff. Come on, do it for us now.
Yeah. Because they could have 300 at the receptions.
Right.
So. I think with that said, let's have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
please call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes?
Dr. Knight Ebowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.